Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable members, we will once more invite you that in the interest of safety for all present, please keep your masks on and stay on your designated seat unless you have an emergency. See, that gentleman does not have an emergency at all. Your voting slips, he's not listening at all. Hello, hello, hello. Please take your seats. There are service officers who can help you with that. This is why they are here. Please take your seats and settle down. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The first item on the order paper is member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement?
Honorable.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC applauds the progress on the implementation of the presidential employment stimulus. The ANC believes that President Cyril Ramaphosa strives to inject much-needed jobs into South Africa's COVID-19 ravaged economy is beginning to bear fruit. This is evident in the second progress report on the implementation of the presidential employment stimulus released by the President recently. The program is well on its way to reaching its targets of creating 800 employment opportunities by the end of the financial year. As part of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan, the presidential employment stimulus is designed to respond to the rise in unemployment caused by the coronavirus pandemic. In the past year, about 13 billion was allocated to stimulus from President Ramaphosa's 100 billion job protection and creation support package. The remaining 87 billion will be allocated over the next 3 years. The presidential employment stimulus supports a range of opportunities through the expansion of the public employment as well as job rentation in vulnerable sectors. In addition, employment opportunities.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You have exhausted your 2 minutes. You have exhausted your 2 minutes.
For livelihood in the creative sectors.
Ma'am, don't read.
Thank you.
No, you don't have an extra second. Keep your 2 minutes, please. I'm the referee here, please. And I'll keep to the rules you've accepted. Let's invite the DA.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The judgment of the Northwest High Court in the Ketleng River local municipality is a win for service delivery. Despite the apparent failure of local democracy in Ketleng River, the DA is happy that the community could find a remedy within the framework of our Constitution. But the judgment is a disgrace for the ANC, the party in control of Ketleng River, and the vast majority of other municipalities classified as dysfunctional. After years of neglect and sabotage by the municipality, the court gave the responsibility for water provision to a residents' association. More than 7 million rand was spent by residents on top of rates and service charges to fix the local purification plant. And now, at long last, people of Ketleng River have a steady supply of drinkable water. But 2 questions now arise. The first, to the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. What will you do to ensure that these residents get their money back, as the Northwest is presently under national government administration? The second, to the ANC. When will your mayors and councillors take responsibility for service delivery? instead of leaving the hard work to others. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, you may be glad to know that I made a mistake, or you may not be so glad to know that I made a mistake when I said it's 2 minutes. You have only 1.5 minutes, and you know that. EFF?
Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. The EFF ESCOM resist marginalization of black executive and companies. The EFF was the only party speaker that sent a warning when the CEO of ESCOM, Andre Director, was appointed. We warned that he was not qualified and he has failed in his previous positions to demonstrate the capacity to. We were able to show how in his previous role he was responsible for the degeneration of the shareholder value and the collapse of the operations which brought the serious losses. He was appointed because he is white and it was clear for that all. This is part of the making the SOEs white gain. Mr. Pravin believes in white people for simple being white and not that in their capacity. The Director did not hide that. At the helm of ESCOM, while corruption will thrive, shortly after his appointment, he was already handpicking executives and suppliers of an appointment without following due process. When the EFF raised this, including in SCOPA meetings, people were quick to defend whiteness without looking into the corruption going on at ESCOM. We are not shocked that there is racist marginalization of black executives and suppliers at ESCOM, Denial, Transnet, and other strategic SOEs. As part of a campaign to bring back whiteness as a measure of good governance under the new dawn. It is in fact the ESCOM procurement general manager, Mr. Soliti.
Your time has expired.
Nango, who has a reputation
don't proceed. Honorable member, I said 1.5 minutes, and honorable member, I'm not outsourcing this duty. The clocks are here. Don't look at your watches, they don't work in the house. Only these ones, official ones, work. Please understand that. And fortunately for you, I have no control over the watches. The system works on its own. Just quietly accept that on this matter, you do not have any authority. ANC, please.
Thanks, Chair. The ANC calls for communities to accept and participate in changing of the geographical names process. In South Africa, it has been standard practice to change names of geographical places which are not in line with the spirit of the Constitution. The transformation of the naming landscape is a critical component of the heritage landscape as a whole. We call upon communities to accept the recent number of changes for towns, cities, and airports in the Eastern Cape published in the Government Gazette that was issued on the 23rd of February 2021. Although the process was done through consultation, we understand that some citizens may have missed the opportunity to participate. All the gazetted names came from the Eastern Cape and were submitted to the South African Geographical Names Committee following a consultation process. Prior to the changes, the Provincial Geographical Names Committee conducted public consultation on all the names that were changed. Amongst the names changed in the Eastern Cape are Port Elizabeth, which is now known as Gebera, and Gebera, the Port Elizabeth International Airport, now known as the Chief Stirman International Airport, and the East London Airport, which is now the King Paulo Airport. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, at first you'll get it wrong. Second time you'll get it right. Don't worry. Honorable members, let's invite the IFP. Chief Whip, don't be biased, please.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable members, today I wish to take the Minister of Finance and Public Enterprises to task. In light of the recent budget debate and the lack of information shared around the SOEs, we suspect underhanded scheming by the Minister of Public Enterprises to once again request the chiffoning of public funds to resuscitate his lifeless SOEs. Despite leaching billions of rands from the public purse, we are still faced with the majority of our SOEs performing dismally, being millions, if not billions, in the red and unable to deliver much needed services to the people of our country. As we have suggested this in the past, government must consider private-public partnership for all our ailing SOEs to gain much needed skills and capital injection. It is obvious that the current management and staff structures are woefully unable to accomplish their mandate. The public-private partnership will also take pressure off the National Treasury. It is continually tasked with trimming the budget allocation to other essential departments and their entities, such as the recent budget cuts proposed for legal aid as to bail out SAA, ESCOM, PRASA, DINEL, among others. Where the private-public partnership are not possible or not viable, government must consider selling off the offending SOEs. Despite having large debt burdens, there are still fixed assets that could make the sale attractive for public buyer. Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result.
Absolutely,
I thank you.
Remember, your term is expired. Yeah, I was agreeing with you on your last point. FF Plus.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Op Sondag 21 Februarie het ons internasionale moedertaaldag gevier. 'n Dag waarop daar wêreldwyd erkenning gegee word aan die belang en waarde van elkeen van ons se moedertaal. The theme for this year's International Mother Tongue Day was fostering multilingualism for inclusion in education and society. Languages with their complex implications for identity, communication, social integration, education, and development are of strategic importance for people and planet. Yet, due to globalization processes, they are increasingly under threat or disappearing altogether. When languages fade, so does the world's rich tapestry of cultural diversity. Opportunities, traditions, memory, unique modes of thinking and expression, valuable resources for ensuring a better future are all lost. Sadly, this is being allowed here on our doorstep in our own country, South Africa, which is famous for its cultural diversity and multilingualism. Die feit dat daar nie erns gemaak word met grondwetlike bepalings oor taal, die uitbou, behoud en beskerming daarvan nie, is uiters kommerwekkend. Provinsiale taalwette word agterweë gelaat en die belang van moedertaalonderrig, oftewel die jag wat deur die ANC-regering daarop gemaak word, dra by tot die globale agteruitgang van kulturele diversiteit. Dit is onaanvaarbaar en mag nie toegelaat word nie. Dit is die regering se taak om grondwetlike bepalings toe te pas en ons inheemse tale, ons moedertale te beskerm, te bevorder en te ontwikkel tot voordeel van alle Suid-Afrikaners. Ek dank u.
Thank you very much. ANC?
The ANC is concerned about the recent spate of criminal acts targeting e-hailing taxi drivers and online shopping delivery vehicles in the Nelson Mandela Bay area, which includes Geographical. Criminals are holding the drivers at gunpoint and even using stun guns on them to hijack their vehicles. In one fatal incident, an e-hailing taxi driver was brutally murdered in New Brighton, which is in Geographical, after dropping off a customer. These highlight the need for improved safety measures for e-hailing and delivery vehicles, but also for the communities as well. A coordinated safety approach is needed, which should include the owners of e-hailing services, increased policing and policing forums to ensure protection and safeguarding of the drivers and passengers. The communities also need to come together to assist police as well as form neighborhood watches to watch these communities' no-go areas for criminal elements. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I sympathize with my fellow presiding officer, Honourable Cedric Flonip. He's going to have a tough time with his tongue, saying where he comes from. DA?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The Democratic Alliance welcomes the finding by the independent review panel that there is in fact prima facie case for the Parliament to begin the removal procedures against the Public Protector Advocate Mkhwebane. We urge Parliament to do this without delay. Given that the Public Protector is the people's watchdog, it is essential that the process moves with haste so that the faith and confidence are restored in this prestigious office. During her tenure as Public Protector, the courts have made damning findings against her. The Constitutional Court found that she acted in bad faith and was not honest with the High Court regarding her investigation process into the Reserve Bank. She laid criminal charges against former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela for releasing a transcript of an interview that she had with the former President Jacob Zuma, and her appeal to overturn Judge Tolmay's scathing judgment of her poor handling of the Estina Dairy matter was dismissed by the Gauteng North High Court. Her independence and credibility have been called into question on a number of occasions, and she has failed to inspire us with trust, and the public deserves better. The interests of the people must always come first, and that is exactly why the DA voted bravely against her appointment in the first instance. If you had listened to our misgivings in the first place, we wouldn't have found ourselves in this position today.
Honourable member from ACDP. If they are not there, we pass them. Oh, okay.
Deputy Speaker.
Oh, Reverend Mishe.
Deputy Speaker, when gender-based violence activists accuse government of not having the will to fight against rape and abuse of women and children, government should not be quick to defend itself. The fact is that our justice system is indeed failing victims of violence in this country, particularly that against women and children. The reported case of a 2-year-old toddler from Rehe Park who was raped allegedly by her mother's ex-boyfriend has been unresolved for more than 2 years. It is alleged that the toddler was taken from her home by her mother's ex-boyfriend to his residence. When her mother went to fetch her, she found her raped, bleeding, and unable to walk. More shocking is that the police have failed to get to the bottom of this case, even though the suspect is known. As all available facts seem to be pointing to the suspect, police must do more to finalize this case, even without DNA results. The ACDP appeals to President Ramaphosa and Police Minister Bheki Cele to personally intervene in this matter to ensure that this toddler and her family get justice very soon. Families of victims of serial killers are also traumatized because they are unable to bury their loved ones due to delays in receiving DNA results. The ACDP further calls on government to prioritize the building and staffing of additional forensic laboratories so that DNA samples needed as evidence can be processed much quicker.
ANC.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Deputy
Speaker, the ANC views unemployment as one of the principal challenges of confronting society. As such, we are concerned about the results of the quarterly labour force survey for the fourth quarter of 2020, which shows that South Africa's unemployment rate has increased to 7.2 million. While the number of employed people increased to 15 million, the unemployment figures are worrying. This is the highest unemployment rate recorded since 2008. The rate has increased by 1.7% points during the fourth quarterly of last year. The ANC understands fully that the lockdown restrictions resulted in this unprecedented unemployment percent. We thus welcome President Cyril Ramaphosa's determination for economic recovery and structural reforms, including job creation and the center of government's priorities. This is aimed at resuscitating the economy from the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. We believe the relief measures that the government is implementing will see the strong recovery in the employment. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. ATM. ATM is not around. ANC.
Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. The ANC welcomes the rollout of vaccines The ANC recognizes that vaccines are an important intervention in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. We therefore applaud the South African government for prioritizing implementation of this intervention. The rollout of vaccine is progressing well in the country. The government plans to vaccinate 67% of the population to reach herd immunity. South Africa has secured millions of vaccines, including 12 million from the COVAX facilities and 20 million doses from Pfizer. The ANC commends that government for working with the international community to ensure that the fight against COVID-19 is intensified. We understand that most doctors and healthcare workers are relieved and excited by the opportunity to be among the first South Africans to receive the vaccine. We also welcome the Treasury's allocation of 10 billion to purchasing and delivery of the vaccine to fight the spread of COVID-19. We call upon our people to ensure using preventative measures against the coronavirus until the country has achieved herd immunity. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Dead on time. Absolutely. DA.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, recently the SIU reported to SCOPA that many documents, contracts and payment details pertaining to transactions and operations at PRASA are missing. This is seriously hindering the SIU's ability to investigate the gross irregularities and corruption at PRASA. Furthermore, procurement processes are routinely disregarded, overpayments are common, and there appear to have been deliberate attempts to hide the trail of irregularities and corruption. We can only assume a transactions revealed last week at the Zondo Commission, where shortly after signing a 3.5 billion locomotive deal, Safambo paid 80 million to two people in a so-called donation to the ANC, are routine, and that the deliberate lack of records is an attempt to frustrate any investigation into the finances of PRASA. Given the train-smashed state of PRASA and the fact that its contractors are paying kickbacks to the ANC, it is clear that SOEs are seen as cash cows and that the governing party has no interest in fulfilling its duty to the people of South Africa. The DA assumes we can look forward to the repayment of this money immediately. I thank you.
Thank you. EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It is concerning that the nation is being misled and that there's lack of transparency in the handling of COVID-19 vaccine procurement processes. Parliament is supposed to represent the public and hold the executive accountable and accomplice in the whole shenanigan of vaccines. President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa is rolling out a Johnson & Johnson vaccine. But in reality, this is phase 3B of vaccine trials for COVID-19, and the House is quiet. In fact, Minister Zweli Mkhize went as far as subverting the ethical process, ensuring that the nation and those participating in the Johnson & Johnson vaccine clinical trial are made fully aware that they are participating in a clinical trial. The truth is, when Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine was delivered and administered here in South Africa, it did not have SAPRA approval except for research purposes. That is a fact. But we are not shocked about this as Dr. Zweli Mkhize refuses to answer questions in the Portfolio Committee of Health, citing some irrational non-disclosure agreement that undermines the Constitution, right of access to information, and in fact will breed a conducive environment for further corruption. We now know that the gimmicks of slides, Twitter daily updates, and endless pictures were nothing but a way to invoice the Department of Health well over 80 million rands to benefit Dr. Zweli Mkhize, his cronies, and his immediate circle. Can the President and the Minister stop misleading our people and not govern the public relations when the COVID pandemic 19 is destroying lives?
Honorable Member, hold on. You've got 2 valuable minutes left. Yes, that.
No, Deputy Speaker. The Speaker cast aspersions to the character of Dr. Mkhize and the President. According to Rule 85, it is not parliamentary, because we must provide a substantive
objection
motion for that.
Sustained. The point of order is sustained. What you said, ma'am, cannot be said except by a substantive motion.
Which part is this, Deputy Speaker?
It's in your statement. You mention it. I'm not.
Which part is this, Deputy Speaker?
It's in your statement.
Which part?
You referred to the
point of order,
the minister
Speaker.
benefiting. Don't talk she's able to speak on herself. Please, just be orderly. You heard what I said, ma'am, and you withdraw that.
Honourable Speaker, on a point of order.
Yes, what's the point of order?
Honourable Speaker, you know for a fact that you need to be clear.
I am clear.
No, you are not clear. Which part
Listen,
must you withdraw?
I
Must you
have
now withdraw
said-
the whole statement?
You are not
Which
listening.
sentence must you withdraw?
Listen, let me...
You must tell us which one or which sentence or which full
Sit
stop
down,
or
let me
comma must
explain to
withdraw?
you. Sit down, let me explain to you.
No,
because
tell
you
us what
refuse
must you
to.
withdraw.
Sit down, ma'am, please. I request you to do so. Because I was very clear. She said the minister benefited in a way in which she says there is no basis for her to say that without a substantive motion.
But it is a fact. The SIU is investigating an 80 million rand tender given
Yes,
for
it is
communications.
investigating.
And it is also a fact.
You did not
that it was
say
given
that.
to close
Honourable
people
member,
of Zweli, Dr.
Honourable
Zweli
member,
Mkhize. It is a fact.
Honourable member, don't argue with me. The responsibility you have is that if you want to state it as a fact, you must do it as a substantive motion. If you said it is an allegation, that would be a different story.
I'm talking about the investigation of the SIU.
Even if that is so, because you don't
I can't
know,
speak about investigations.
Because, honourable member, you are debating with me, and it's inappropriate, and you shouldn't do it. So you withdraw immediately. Please do so. The rules require you to do so. If you don't want to do so, you don't proceed.
I will say it differently.
No, don't say it differently. You withdraw.
But you're saying I must say it's an allegation. I want to say that.
Honourable member, you withdraw unconditionally.
I withdraw, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you
Can I
very
continue?
much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now know that the gimmicks of slides, Twitter daily updates, and endless pictures were nothing but a way to invoice the Department of Health well over 80 million rands, allegationally, to the benefit of Dr. Zweli Mkhize's cronies and his office and immediate circle. Can the President and the Minister stop misleading our people and not govern by public relations when the COVID-19 pandemic is destroying human lives and livelihoods?
Honourable member.
The EFF unequivocally calls for the immediate removal of Dr. Zweli Mkhize since the outbreak of COVID-19. He has shown nothing but incompetence and his actions.
Honourable member, you are out of order. Ridiculously so. So are your friends who are clapping with you. You are out of order. This is what happens when irrationality prevails over the House. Absolutely.
What happens when old people sit on the chair there?
Honourable Paulson. Honourable Paulson.
Honourable Chairperson.
Point of order on the comment by Member Paulson.
Honourable members. Honourable members. Honourable members. Honourable members, take your seats. Take your seats. This is exactly what I said when irrationality rules the House. You are out of order and you must stop doing it.
Speaker, I hope you're going to deal with that member that charged and challenged me. I want to see you have the guts to deal with a white boy in this house.
Look at what you are doing.
Show me you have the
Look
guts
at
to
what
deal
you are
with a
doing.
white boy.
Point of order on Member Paulson.
Honourable
Now
Paulson.
disrupting the House.
Don't have the guts to keep white people to account.
Honourable Paulson, you are out of order and you should withdraw what you are saying. Withdraw it. Withdraw it.
Are you going to hold him?
Honourable member,
He
stop.
charged at me.
Honourable members.
But he must charge at me.
Honourable.
He mustn't just threaten.
Honourable
I am ready for him.
Honourable member.
I said she must go back to Italy.
Honourable member, withdraw your statement. Withdraw your statement.
Withdraw which statement?
Or withdraw your statement.
Which
if you
one?
don't want to withdraw, you go.
Tell me the statement
You go.
you want me to withdraw.
Honourable, you will withdraw. You will withdraw or you go.
What?
You are going
Which
to withdraw.
statement?
If you don't know, you go, honourable member. You are defying the House. I told you.
Which statement?
Honourable member,
Honourable
you
Chair.
withdraw. You go away.
Honourable Chair.
No, I heard him. No, I heard him.
Withdraw. If it suits you, I withdraw.
Honourable member, unconditionally. You will do it unconditionally.
Unconditionally, you will withdraw.
Speaker.
Okay? Honorable member, take your seat. Take your seat, honorable member. There's a honorable Mazodi. You too, honorable member, take your seats. Take your seats. There's a member on the floor. You will withdraw unconditionally.
Sit down, Mama.
Paulson,
Sit down.
Honorable Paulson, Honorable Paulson, Honorable Paulson, you take instructions from the chair, please. Okay. Honorable Mazoni, you are supposed to sit down. Take your seat, please. Take your seat.
Me too.
Honorable Mazoni, Honorable Paulson, withdraw unconditionally. Unconditionally, sir?
I withdraw unconditionally. Okay.
Thank you very much. Take your seat. Take your seat. Honorable members, I request that you don't do what you've just done now, earlier on. It is irresponsible. It casts you and the House in bad repute. All of you who stood up and did what you are doing. You are continuing to point fingers. You are continuing to suggest things that you shouldn't. In the first place, what you said, it was out of order in the first place. That was out of order. And so you shouldn't be, honorable member, please, just accept that there's one chair in the House.
Speaker, you're not even speaking about what she said or what he did.
Honorable members,
I must be bullied in this House and you preside over this bullying.
Honorable member, what's happening now? What's happening? What's happening?
On the point of order, Chair. Is well known for physically threatening members of this House. He told Honorable Mazzoni to go back to Italy. He told me earlier to go back to Swaziland. So can you sanction him for he's shouting at you like he's at a taxi rank?
Yeah.
Sanction him.
Honorable members,
and I respected you. I sat down.
Honorable,
she stand up. She just speaks.
Honorable members,
my hand was up, Speaker.
Honorable
I
members,
asked to address you with all respect.
Go ahead, talk.
Don't start with me, small boy. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And that is precisely what is happening and what these DA white boys are doing. They are charging at Nazir.
No, Honorable Mazzoni, take your seat. Take your seat, Honorable. You will take your seat. You will take your seat. Honorable member. Honorable member. Honorable member. Honorable member. Play still, like Pratt. Wat gaan aan met jou? Play still, man. Listen here. You have no business to be talking back to the chair, to be talking back to everybody here and pointing your fingers as you are doing. It is irresponsible and it's really bad that you are doing that. Can you say what you say?
Thank you.
And you will not. Honorable member, you know, I'm trying to protect you as a member of parliament with some respect. Honorable person, they gaan baie stil bly. The next time you do that, you must use the door. You need fresh air badly, badly. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Kijk wat gaan aan met jou. What's wrong with you, honorable member? Go ahead, speak, honorable member.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, we accept your ruling.
It's still deputy.
Deputy Speaker, now I'm speaking in the future, Speaker. Don't.
Honorable member, you know nothing about the future. Absolutely nothing. That I can guarantee you. You absolutely know nothing about the future. Nor do I, by the way. Speak, please.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, in all fairness, Deputy Speaker, we accept your ruling, and that was an utter disgrace that what have happened, and we sincerely apologize, Deputy Speaker. But however, Deputy Speaker, you must also be fair in terms of your ruling. This member is charging, and the other one even continue when I want to speak. He makes severely comments towards me, and you don't note these comments that they are doing, and very rudely comments that they are saying that I can't even say now. And that is that is what white privilege is about. And white supremacy is about. The moment they are being challenged, they act exactly like that. And that is what they are doing. And you even continue in your ruling, you even continue, as much as Honorable Nazir must withdraw, this member must also withdraw what they have done, because they are equally guilty for this, what have happened. And you know what you have said, because you will protect your friends.
Honorable member.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Honorable member. You see, the problem with you want us to rule in this way or that way. You want to give us instructions to do that. Please lower your hands down. I'm speaking. That's what the rules say you should do. You should wait. Is there any sense in not doing so? Because you will know stones in my mouth throw, and it's out of order. Honorable members, you are throwing metaphorical stones at each other where you are sitting. It is irresponsible, and you must stop it. You are going to claim provocation. It is irresponsible. Two wrongs don't make a right. So I request that you be orderly. And please, honorable members, let's not stoke racial, tribal, and such stuff that we know constitutionally we shouldn't be doing. It doesn't come up. Listen, Honorable Van Dam, do you have any manners? She doesn't have any. She interrupts me while I'm speaking from the chair. Why do you do that? Why? Take your seat, honorable member. I'm still...
Give me a question. I said you must add
honorable member.
No, Van Dam, sit
honorable
down.
member,
Van Dam,
don't be
sit
cheeky.
down. The deputy speaker's on the floor.
Honorable member, I don't need your
shut.
assistance. I don't need anybody's assistance. Please, please, honorable Van Dam, you don't do that. Not ever again. It's out of order, and it's not on for you to speak while the chair is speaking. Please let it be fundamental in your conduct. It doesn't diminish your ideas, whatever they are, whether we agree with them or not. It doesn't. Just obey the rules. Because if you do otherwise, you invite us to throw you out of the house. Yes, you will be thrown. Look, you will be thrown out if you do that. You will be thrown out if you don't obey the rules. Honorable member. Honorable member. Okay. Okay, I think there's a... Chief, will you please allow me to finish what I'm trying to say? Honorable Mazoni, I requested you to lower your hands because I'm addressing your members. No, I'm addressing your members and they are misbehaving. And they are acting in a manner that is disrespectful. And they must individually take responsibility. Because I think it is not on for you, honorable member, that the only way a sanction against you is valid only when others are sanctioned as well. When your conduct itself is irresponsible. It is out of order. I don't accept that. And I've told you, both of you between those aisles, that it is not on to be provocative. You are creating an impression in which the House now must be waiting instead of proceeding with the valuable work of the House, and we must address your conduct. Conduct, I mean, really? No, I don't accept this. It doesn't advance anybody's political perspective, not 1 inch. Yes, ma'am. What are you raising on, honorable member?
Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. I'm rising to also address the incident that happened. I think that my fellow chief whips in the House will know that part of our duty as chief whips is when there is an attempt of a physical altercation. One of the things that the whips do is that they stop a physical altercation happening. It was therefore my duty to go and stand between the EFF and any of my members, because as chief whip, and as you can see the other whips are agreeing with me, part of my job is to hold the decorum of the House. So I apologize if I or any of my members did not hold the decorum of the House. But Chairperson, there are things that are being said in a xenophobic way that you don't hear on the microphone. And that is why the Honourable Van Dam stood up and said that the Honourable Pulsar had told me to go back to Italy and had told her to go back to Swaziland, and was then continuing under his breath while you were talking. So please allow me to assure you, sir, there is no one in this House that has more respect for you than the Honourable Van Dam. And she's also one of my whips, and one of her jobs is to hold the line and to hold the peace on that side. But if we have offended you in any way, or if we have disrupted the decorum of the House, I apologise for that. But sir, what I have to do as my job as Chief Whip is to stop a physical altercation happening within the House. And I think that I did a pretty good job of it, and I made sure that there wasn't. So the Honourable Pulser says I mustn't worry, that tonight we can do this. Honourable Pulser, have a look at my arm. You should see the other guy. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable members, Honourable Paulson.
I just want to correct what you said. I said if she didn't stop, she'd sleep alone tonight.
Honourable Paulson. Honourable Paulson. Honourable Paulson, can we withdraw that, please? Honourable members, I said you must stop being provocative.
Chief, you came for me. If a man comes for me, he gets what's coming to him.
Honourable Paulson, can you leave the house?
All right.
Honourable Paulson, leave the house.
Yeah.
Leave the house, Honourable member. Please, leave the house. Leave the house. There will be no question about it. Just leave the house. Honourable Van Dam, stop what you're doing. You will leave the house. You will leave. You will follow him. You will follow him. Honourable Paulson, please don't. Honourable Paulson. Honourable Paulson. Honourable Van Dam, I will not take anything.
Me.
I'm not going to take anything from you.
Me
Honourable
to
Paulson.
beat me up.
You see, Honourable Van Dam, you are provocative. You are deliberately inviting this provocation and you want us to rule in your favor. Look at her. Just look at her. Kijk net wat gaan aan met haar. Just look at her. Honourable Van Dam, Honourable Van Dam, Honourable Van Dam, Honourable Van Dam, leave the house. Leave the house. You leave the house.
Thank you. Gladly,
you don't talk.
Gladly. You allow women to be threatened here and you allow them to be xenophobic. I'll gladly leave.
Honourable Van Dam, leave the house. Honourable Van Dam, leave the house. Honourable Van Dam, don't talk.
To beat me up outside.
Don't exacerbate. Don't exacerbate that. You are threatening me now. Leave the house. No, honourable member, leave the house, please. Just leave your house. Honourable Van Dam, stop doing what you're doing.
House Chair, I need to rise on an urgent point of order.
Yes.
House Chair, when the Honourable Paulson left, he said to the Honourable Van Dam, I'll be waiting for you outside and I'll show what I will
Honourable
do.
member.
Can we make sure that there is a policeman
Honourable
who
member,
escorts
Honourable member,
outside?
none of that will happen. None of that will happen.
Can we guarantee
there are people here,
that's what
Honourable member, there are people here who are in charge of that. That will not happen. Honourable member, please take your seat. Honourable member, please, let's proceed with the business of the House.
Yes, Deputy Speaker, I will let us proceed, and I want us to proceed, Deputy Speaker. But what is said against Nazir, it's totally wrong. Nazir have never threatened Pumzile Van Dam, and Nazir I've worked with 10 years from now. He will never lay a hand on any woman.
Yeah, Honourable member.
He have spoken to this gentleman, he have said
Honourable member,
said to Nazir,
Honourable member, I heard him. That's why I said he must go.
You didn't speak to
Honourable member, take your seat because I heard him what he said. Please, don't do that. Don't do that. Honourable members, we will proceed now. ANC. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The African National Congress commends the matric class of 2020 for defying all odds and achieving the pass rate of 76.2%. Despite the decline of 5.1% from the class of 2019, the class of 2020 has done fairly well given the kind of challenges they faced during their examinations. On all accounts, 2020 was a difficult year for the matriculants, but the determination and resilience they displayed against all odds was outstanding. The ANC is impressed with the increase in the number of bachelor passes by just over 13% and the 4% increase in the number of candidates who passed with a diploma. The Free State was the top performing province, followed by Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. The ANC congratulates all those who passed and wish them well in their future endeavors. We would also like to thank the committed teachers and all those who played supportive roles for their contribution. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. AIC, thank you. Is connection okay in Matatiele? Oh, in the house.
Go ahead, Nati.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker,
Deputy.
as African Independent Congress, we're a little bit happy with the construction that has taken place, constructing road between Matatiele and Malute. That at last, the people of Matatiele are receiving those services. But that contractor, Honorable Speaker, seems to be lacking a lot. They don't seem to have a plan to construct the road. They've got to wait for a long period because they seem to borrow from somewhere. And they seem not to be committed enough. We have tried now to speak and engage the local municipality to intervene. Sometimes now the road will be closed, but nothing will be doing. No work will be taking place. So we think now the municipality should take care, not just to award tenders to any person who doesn't have the proper tools of plant or who have got no capacity at all. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The African National Congress welcomed the call made by our President, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, at a recent World Health Organization's Global Citizen Recovering Better Together campaign for world leaders to support the COVAX facility to ensure rapid and equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines for all countries. We further endorse the views that the rich countries must donate 5% of their vaccines to needy countries, particularly in our African continent. In addition, it is also important for transfer of medical technology to be enabled for the duration of the pandemic. This is essential as it will allow countries to increase the production of COVID-19 vaccines and improve distribution and lowering of the prices. We believe that these calls are morally sound as the concerns are real, and the task of vaccinating the poorest of the poor requires a massive global effort by rich and poor countries alike. Every day that goes by results in preventing deaths that must be avoided. The longer it takes to globally eradicate the virus, it may mutate further, nullifying the effects of the vaccine. As long as the virus is here, trade flows and global supply chains will be severely disrupted and destabilize the real, already fragile livelihoods of millions of people in the developing countries. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. That concludes member statements. Are there any ministerial responses?
Sorry, Deputy Speaker, the National Freedom Party hasn't had a turn yet.
Where have you been hiding? You are not even on my list. You are not.
As well as Al-Jamaa.
Okay, go ahead. I'll give you that opportunity.
As well as Al-Jamaa, Deputy Speaker.
Yeah, all right. You get your
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party notes with grave concern the failure by the National Department of Higher Education to address the concerns of many students who have made applications for student financial aid.
Honorable Sheikh Imam.
With deadlines, and other tertiary institutions having closed for applications. Many students have not had any response from the National Department. Despite intervention by the National Freedom Party, Department of Higher Education, applicants have not yet had any response. Erin Little and Ms. Nelly Siva in Tombela are two of those who have made applications last year sometime and have had no response from the National Department today. Now, it clearly indicates the lack of capacity at the National Department of Higher Education to deal timelessly with these applications of students. The failure of the department to act timelessly will result in a negative impact on these students who actually want to pursue their studies. Thank you.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, you and Honorable Hendricks are not on the list today. So you've decided to field yourself. I made a mistake by allowing you. But I will let yours go because anyway, ATM was not here. So we'll slot you into the ATM slot, and that's how you'll survive the chop. But next time, Honorable Hendricks, you are not on the coach's list of players. You are not playing today. We'll field you next time. So let's get ministerial responses.
We're not our turn for Minister State.
Switch off your mic, honorable member. Ministerial responses.
Deputy Speaker, I'm here.
Oh, go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, I'm here, Deputy Speaker Nzimande.
Okay, you'll follow, Honorable Nzimande. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. It's Deputy Minister Mafu from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. I just want to appreciate the discussion that has been taking place around the issue of the geographical change of names, and to stress the fact that that's part of changing and dealing with the transformation in the country. And that process,
please switch off your mic. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. And it is important for members to make sure that their constituencies are aware of this, and make sure that those names that are not in line with what we want to do and build a better country, that process must take place. You have to make sure that you submit to the committees that deal with that, and the department is very happy and willing to assist to make sure that we actually transform the landscape. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Nzimande.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I rise to respond to the matter raised by the Honorable Member of Parliament of the NFP regarding the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. I want to assure the member and the public that the National Student Financial Aid Scheme is not asleep. It's working very hard. As I'm speaking now, they are processing the applications that have been made by many aspirant students. The reason why we have not announced till now is because there are certain funding matters that we are finalizing with National Treasury. And those matters we hope that we'll be able to finalize very soon. And they arise out of the fact that we've had an extended academic year which was not budgeted for. And also we continue to support students with NSFAS even when the universities and colleges were closed. So that has posed new challenges, plus a huge increase in the applications by students from families, some of whom in the past were able to pay for themselves, but because of job losses and companies also that have actually not survived COVID-19, we now have a lot of students who qualify. So we'll be making announcements in due course. As this government, we are a caring government, we will ensure that we are able to respond to the students as soon as we have finalized these discussions urgently together with National Treasury.
Thank you very much. Next, ministerial response. Menna Lady Pando, please speak.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, we welcome the statement by the ACDP concerning the need for South Africa to combat gender-based violence. This is something that the government is taking extremely seriously at all levels of the security establishment of our country, and through the plan that has developed in the presidency and the Ministry for Women, Children and Persons with Disability. We have strengthened the fight against gender-based violence and femicide in our country, and we believe with the support of the people of South Africa and all political parties and a very strong community-based strategic initiative, we will be able to combat this particular pandemic in our country. Secondly, Chairperson, we welcome the ANC's call for vaccines to be a global good. We believe this is extremely important, that all of us must be safe in order for the entire global community to be protected.
against the virus. We have proposed at the level of the World Trade Organization that there should be a waiver on the TRIPS regulations, allowing for technology transfer to developing countries so that we may expand and enhance production of vaccines in our own sovereign countries in order to ensure that all of us, rich and poor, have access to vaccinations against this terrible COVID-19 virus. So we support the call by the ANC that we should all establish the ability to innovate, to produce vaccines, and to ensure through the World Health Organization, the African Union, through the Vaccine Access Task Team established by President Ramaphosa, that all countries have access to these vaccines. I thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Next ministerial response. Next ministerial response. Which minister? Which minister? It doesn't sound like a minister trying to speak clearly. Honorable members, is there any other minister who wants to reply? Deputy ministers? No, this is not good, man. I'm afraid in the absence of any further ministerial responses, we will have to proceed. We will remind them in future that when we have this opportunity, it is important that they be present to give responses to member statements as articulated here today. We will do that, members. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of recognition of customary marriages amendment bill and of report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services thereon.
I now recognize Honorable Magwanishe from the Judicial Platform.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker and honorable members. The report of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on the recognition of customary marriages amendment bill dated 12 February 2021. Our committee, having considered the recognition of customary marriages amendment bill passed by the National Council of Provinces and returned to the National Assembly for concurrence, agrees with the amendments to the bill. Specifically, the Council amended the definition of traditional leader in Clause 1 to substitute a broad non-legislation specific definition of a traditional leader and the date referred to in the short title from 2019 to 2020. I ask that this House support the report. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. As there is no list of speakers, I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House adopts this report. Thank you.
Honorable members, the Deputy Chief Whip invites you to support her call for the adoption. The Chief Whip.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Good. You must follow good leadership. You must assert yourself. That's good. Honorable members, there are parties that have indicated they need declaration, and so the usual times of declaration will apply. The ANC? Okay. Honorable member? Honorable self, it's your turn. It's your turn.
Deputy Speaker,
on my right. Order. Honorable self, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I was a little bit nonplussed by your conversation. This bill is the product of a Constitutional Court judgment in Ramahove and others versus the President of the Republic of South Africa and others in 2017 on the question of the propriety consequences of polygamous marriages entered into before the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act, or the RCMA, and whether the differentiation between people in pre-Act polygamous marriages and women in post-Act polygamous marriages was justified. The Constitutional Court declared Sections 7, sub 1 and 2 of the RCMA to be constitutionally invalid because it discriminated unfairly against women in polygamous marriages entered into prior to the promulgation of the Act on the basis of gender, race, ethnic and social origin. The Constitutional Court furthermore granted an interim order which afforded joint and equal ownership, management, control, and the exercise of other rights over the marital property to a husband and his different wives, pending the finalisation of this proposed amendment. This bill could have been a huge step forward to improve the propriety rights of women in polygamous customary marriages. However, as is always the case with customary law-related legislation, the ANC has not embraced our constitutional duty to develop customary law in order to fully reflect the constitutional values like equality and dignity of women. It strongly remains our view that the unwillingness and refusal to include definitions of the term marital property, house property, and family property leaves a massive hole of uncertainty and, for obvious reasons, creates the possibility of manipulation and collusion between the remaining wives and the husband against a wife who is seeking a divorce. We therefore cannot support the bill.
Thank you. Honourable, it's the EFF now.
Jabulela, Sekla Somlomo. Chairperson, we have dealt with this bill here before it went to the NCOP. We supported it emphatically. We did this because most of us are products of customary marriages, and we have observed how this system of marriage, if left unchecked, can mean unimaginable harm on women when their husbands die. Recognition of Customary Marriages Act was meant to correct this error in law, but it has, as shown, fallen short of covering in full the rights of women in polygamous customary marriages. We must therefore pass our gratitude to the Limpopo Division of the High Court, which ruled that Section 7, subsection 1 of the Act was unconstitutional because it discriminated against women in customary polygamous marriages entered into before the commencement of the Act. It left wives in polygamous marriages entered to before the commencement of the Act with no rights to marital property, and that this right was reserved solely for husbands. This amendment seeks to correct that defect. Again, we must be ashamed that we correct this defect after being instructed to do so by the courts. It is our primary duty as this legislative house to develop laws that protect most marginalized in society, in particular, Black women, who have been abused by both the racism of white people and the patriarchy of their own people. It is not uncommon, even today, to see elderly Black women getting kicked out of their marriages they have dedicated their lives to with nothing, simply because they are women, or seeing them being kicked out of their houses by their in-laws when their husbands have passed away. This is particularly severe for women in polygamous marriages where the balance of power between the wives is uneven. As we did when we first debated this bill, we reiterate our concern that Parliament has taken such a long time to correct this constitutional invalidity. The Constitutional Court confirmed the findings of the Limpopo High Court in November 2007, and Parliament was given until the 30th of November 2019 to correct this defect. It's now 2021, and we have failed thousands of women through the delays and ought to do better as the House of Parliament. The EFF supports this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The IFP welcomes the progress that has been made regarding the recognition of customary marriages bill. The bill seeks to address discriminatory regulations of ownership of matrimonial property for spouses in both monogamous and polygamous marriages, which were entered into before the commencement of the Act. The bill essentially seeks to do so by ensuring that spouses share equally in the right of ownership of family property, including the right of management and control of family property. This is a critical piece of legislation that will bring us closer to the much needed protection of women and their property rights in customary marriages. It is unfortunate that it has taken this long for this House to give effect to the confirmation of the 2017 order of constitutional invalidity in the Rahube case. It is concerning that legislating for vulnerable people in our democracy remains an odious process, potentially exposing these vulnerable people to harm. While the IFP recognizes this progress, the party notes that the bill does not address similar concerns carried by Muslim and Hindu women who are married according to their particular customary rights. In the journey towards the protection of all South Africans, it is important that this legislation be seen to care about the well-being and rights protection of all who need it. This is, after all, the mandate with which we are mandated. Further, this legislation must not be seen to be a purely responsive one, waiting for the judiciary to hand down orders demanding our action. The IFP supports the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. FF Plus.
Daar's niemand van die FF Plus. ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP rises in support of this report. One of the main objectives were to address those customary marriages that were entered into before the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act. And this as a result of the two Constitutional Court judgments referred to by previous speakers, where the concern was addressed that Section 7.1 created a situation where women prior to the Act, customary marriages had no rights of ownership, property ownership and control became the sole purview of the husband. And so clearly this needed to be addressed. And whilst we appreciate the concerns from the DA about the other definitions, these amendments are in terms of the Constitutional Court, and therefore it is important for us to consider the fact that the Constitutional Court gave an interim relief, and they gave Parliament until 30th of November 2019 to pass the additional amendments. At our failure to do that, that remedial or the interim order then became final, which granted relief to women in customary marriages prior to the Act. So the concern from our side is twofold. Firstly, these amendments deal exclusively with customary marriages, and it is regrettable that to date, as the Honourable Member from the IFP said, that the religious Hindu and Muslim marriages are still not recognized, and this should be remedied as far as possible, as soon as possible. The second issue, of course, relates to the fact that this amendment bill took so long to be finalized by Parliament. Now, the Department of Justice made an application for the extension of the time period granted by the court, and that, interestingly enough, was rejected by the Constitutional Court. The court noted that the reasons furnished for Parliament's failure to remedy the defect in the legislation were not satisfactory. But there were obviously reasons for this, and the court observed that extending the period of suspension would serve no useful purpose, as the interim order had become final, but that Parliament was obviously free to continue to process the bill regardless of whether there was an extension or not. So clearly, it's very important for Parliament to look at these deadlines very carefully, and we in the ACDP welcome the fact that this has been dealt with at speakers level, at deputy speakers level, in the programming committee, and there's now a mechanism in place to ensure that we as Parliament adhere to Constitutional Court deadlines. The ACDP supports this report. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM?
United Democratic Movement siyayixhasa recognition of Customary Marriages Amendment Bill ngesizathu sokuyazi ukuthi phayana ngakumbi emakhaya bayacalulwa abantu abangomama linene elithi sibone kaninzi and kakubi kwimeko apho ayawuthi esakubhubha umuntu ongutata ufumanisa umuntu ongumama obetshata iminyaka akanalo ibango kwizinto zomyeni wakhe okanye kuzawuthiwa ngose izinto zomyeni wakhe bezenze bazakha kunye iminyaka omamjwarha ojawe nogcirha ngapha emakhaya ufumanisa ukuthi baphuma bona bengaphethanga nto kufuneka beyohlala kwizihlobo nezalamane okubalulekileyo ukuthi apho sifuna uma khona sigxile is a point that we made even last year when this matter was being deliberated in the committee. And the point was that we need to deal with this matter of customary marriages in a very comprehensive sense and try to close all the loopholes that exist in the Act and some of the definitions which are not clear, because what you find in the judgments that you see from the various courts, it depends on who the judge is and how they decide to interpret and view the matter. The other problem is in some of these courts, like the Western Cape High Court, if you like, there are judges or for an example, cases that are determined on the basis of the close proximity of applicants or the opponents to certain judges and not on the basis of Customary Marriages Act, because it has a lot of gray areas. Some of you might know, but I'm not going to debate that. I've been treated appallingly by this court for a number of reasons, some of them which pertain to these areas which are very unclear, areas which need the attention of an institution or an arm of government like Parliament to clarify these areas and not wait for the Court at some point to actually point us to the right direction. We'll discuss those issues as and when the time is right. But the fact of the matter is some of the judges have gone rogue in South Africa and they do as they please and they need to be reined in. Thank you very much.
ETM. They are still not available. Good. Is good available? No. NFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, when the Constitutional Court in 2017 ordered Parliament to amend certain parts of the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act of 1998 to give women in customary or polygamous marriages equal rights to assets and properties, this was indeed a victory for many South African women who have been in customary or polygamous marriages. This means that the amended law will provide adequate protection for women that have been previously discriminated against by families that suddenly refuse to recognize the spouse of the deceased in an attempt to claim the wealth of the deceased. Now, it is common practice, Deputy Speaker, in South Africa, where men have mistresses or they have what we call polygamous relationships or enter into customary marriages with second and third wives without the first wife having any knowledge of. And when the person is deceased, the spouses, particularly from customary marriages and polygamous marriages, are actually, they have a serious problem in that the first wives will not allow them to benefit from these things. So I think the Constitutional Court in its judgment had actually empowered our women, particularly that have been a victim of this for a long period of time. In the previous piece of legislation, technically women were refused any share of any assets that belonged to the deceased. Now, the National Freedom Party supports this because this is one piece of legislation that we believe that will provide adequate protection to women who happen to be in this polygamous relationship. And very importantly, I think it is a lesson to men in South Africa that when you enter into this polygamous or customary relationship without your spouses and family members being aware of it, that you will indeed be leaving a serious challenge to these women. And now that these women will have and receive adequate protection and will share in your wealth, that you should actually ensure that at all given time that you're upfront, and when you enter into this polygamous and a relationship, that it is done with utmost of integrity, and that it is your responsibility to make sure that you protect all these wives and children out of this polygamous relationship. The National Freedom Party will support this. Thank you.
AIC. It's not here. Cope?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. COPE rises to support the bill. The majority of us who are African South Africans, born in the deepest rural areas and or villages, which are governed by the kings, chiefs, and indunas, and of course, to a lesser number, those South Africans who lived and or still live in townships, and of course, some in the suburban areas, are familiar with the customary marriages. We also know that the properties that get accumulated during the marriages belong to the husbands who, when they die, the first wife, from whatever number the husband may have married, becomes the main owner of the majority of those properties and accumulated wealth. Without doubt, this is a momentous challenge the rest of the wives usually face, and it indeed needs to be changed. Section 15(3)(a) and B of the Constitution indicates that although everyone has a right to freedom of religion, belief, and opinion, that must be consistent with other provisions of the country's constitution. It is correct that whatever number the married spouses or wives there may be, all must be allowed equal marital wealth, privileges, including houses, other properties, et al. If that is not done, there shall be evil intra-family contradictions where some members will die of hunger, of poverty, whilst others shall rise and celebrate their enjoyment of wealth, food, quality education, health, and all advantages. That won't be correct. COPE therefore support this bill put before the House. Thank you very much.
Thank you. PAC. PAC is not here. Al-Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. This act will soon be repealed. So all this is a waste of time. This debate is a waste of time. Propriety rights must be in terms of the tenets of a religion and established culture which exists hundreds of years. When it comes to marriages, the Constitution provides for reasonable accommodation, trumping the equality clauses even of the Constitution. Muslim marriages and Hindu marriages continue to be left out. We thank the ACDP and IFP for giving leadership. There is a one marriage statute bill on the radar, initiated by Minister Aledi Pandor 5 years ago, and there's a constitutional deadline that this matter must be sorted out by November 22. So this amendment will be thrown in the waste paper basket in a year's time when we have a one statute marriage bill. I'm sorry, Deputy Speaker, that we are all wasting your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No debate in Parliament is a waste of time, Daddy. Okay, the question is, how can you be on my blind side? Please go ahead, ma'am. Sorry. She is on the blind side. No, the mirror is here, so I can't see her. Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The African National Congress rises in support of the recognition of customary marriages, Amendment Bill B12 of 2019. The Recognition of Customary Marriage Act of 1998 was enacted to, among others, make provision for the recognition of customary marriages, to provide for the equal status and capacity of spouses in customary marriages, and to regulate the propriety consequences of customary marriages. The Act gives full recognition of a type of marriage that has been practiced by many communities in Africa. This has been the case since time immemorial. The Act correctly affords customary marriages the same legal status of civil marriages. While the 1998 Act is indeed progressive and reflection of Africanness, it has not been without limitations. The property rights of some women have been constrained, and women in polygamous customary marriages still experience unfair discrimination. This bill seeks to address such issues. The Amendment Bill seeks to amend the Principal Act for further regulating the propriety consequences of marriage, customary marriages entered into before the commencement of the Act, so as to bring the provision of the Act in line with the judgment of the Constitutional Court in Ramohubi and others versus the President of the Republic of South Africa and others, where the court found that Section 7, subsection 1 of the Act to be constitutionally invalid because it discriminates unfairly against women in polygamous marriages. Customary marriages who entered into such marriages before the commencement of the Act on the basis of gender, race, and ethnic or social origin. Section 7, subsection 1 of the Act provides that the propriety consequences of the marriage entered into before the commencement of the Act continue to be governed by customary law, in terms of which wives have no right of ownership and control over marital property, which right is reserved solely for husbands. In Gumede versus President of the Republic of South Africa, the Constitutional Court declared Section 7, subsection 1 of the Act to be constitutionally invalid insofar as it relates to the de facto monogamous customary marriages, but left open the question whether Section 7, subsection 1 was constitutionally valid insofar as it applies to polygamous marriage. Section 7, subsection 2 was also declared to be constitutionally invalid as it was ordered that the words, I quote, entered into the commencement of the Act, close quote, to be removed from the subsection. The amendment bill was passed in the National Assembly in 2020 and referred to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. The NCOP conducted its public participation process between September and November of 2020. Because of the challenges which were brought about by COVID-19, provinces were afforded additional time for the public participation. The bill was passed in the NCOP and referred to the Justice and Correctional Services Portfolio Committee, which adopted the report. The bill not only cures the defect of unconstitutionality, which was found in the Principal Act, it is progressive because it is a step closer towards legalizing equal propriety rights between men and women engaged in monogamous and polygamous customary marriages. Moreover, it is a reflection of the African National Congress commitment to the rights and total emancipation of women. Therefore, the African National Congress supports the bill. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, are there any objections to the motion as moved by the Chief Whip of the majority party that the bill as amended be passed? No objections agreed to. The bill will be sent to the President for assent. The Secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of Budgetary Review and Recommendation Report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on Office of the Chief Justice and Judicial Administration.
Chief Whip, Deputy Chief Whip, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
Honorable members, the agreement is that switch off your mic. Honorable members, please switch off your mics. Just check your mic and ensure that it's switched off. We don't really want to hear what you're doing where you are. I will now allow for up to 2 minutes, one member of each political party wishing to make a declaration, an opportunity to do so. This is as per agreement. The DA?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We rise in support of the report of the Budgetary Review of the Office of the Chief Justice and the recommendation contained therein. As the report states, quote, the intention when
Makosini, Chaka, please switch off your mic. You keep opening it, I don't know for what reason. Just switch off, please. Go ahead, Honorable Self.
Thank you. As the report states, quote, the intention when establishing the OCJ as a national department within the public service was that this would be in the first phase towards an independent, judiciary-led court administration system to realize fully the judiciary's institutional independence in line with the Constitution. The Superior Courts Act of 2013 establishes a legislative framework for the Chief Justice to exercise his or her judicial leadership supported by the OCJ and provides for the delegation of certain functions flowing from the Act to the OCJ, unquote. While the report only notes that the envisaged transfer of further functions to the OCJ, which would enable the realization of a judiciary-led court administration to become a reality, this has not happened, and we confirm that from our side that we deem this as a priority matter. Other important matters identified by the report which need to be addressed sooner rather than later is the improvement of the ICT infrastructure and ICT security and the physical security of the facilities of the department. We simply cannot have a situation where the rule of law can be threatened by malicious access into either the ICT systems or the facilities housing the judiciary and the documents related to the disputes it has to determine. Deputy Speaker, all of us who hold dear our constitutional democracy are forever thankful for the supremacy of the Constitution. We are also not for a moment doubting the wisdom of those who entrusted the judiciary with the role of being the final arbiters of whether any action or decision is consistent with our Constitution.
Honorable Self, what's your left? Your time is over.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. EFF.
Second Somlamo. We have consistently supported attempts to strengthen the office of the Chief Justice by nudging Parliament and the Department of Justice to make available sufficient resources to that office. We did this because it is critically important that this office, which represents perhaps the most important arm of our democracy in as far as law and justice are concerned, to be sufficiently funded so that it remains robust in executing its functions. We want the Office of the Chief Justice to continue its role in strengthening the governance of the judiciary in a manner that would give confidence to ordinary people in the street that our judiciary is still beyond reproach. Importantly, we have argued here in the past that there are no reasons whatsoever that magistrates' courts are treated differently and administered by the Department of Justice instead of the Office of the Chief Justice. This, in our view, would ensure that all functions of the judiciary, from the magistrates to the highest court in the land, are under the governance of the Office of the Chief Justice, which must be sufficiently capacitated to provide training to judges and assist the Judicial Services Commission in maintaining law and order, in maintaining law and order within the judiciary, and reassure the public that all judges are ethically upright and not susceptible to political machinations and bribes. We are in full support of the Office of the Chief Justice, and we support this BRRR. Thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, an independent and impartial judiciary remains one of the last vestiges of the rule of law, constitutionalism, and the democratic checks and balances process. It is therefore vital that the Office of the Chief Justice continue unimpeded along its trajectory in pursuit of its end goal, namely that of an independent judiciary-led court administrative system which will culminate in an institutionally independent judiciary. Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is no secret that our judiciary, led by Chief Justice, is under assault from numerous quarters by those seeking to undermine both the rule of law and the constitution of our country. Our apex law has been referred to as a Western concept, inferring that it has no place in Africa. What is regrettable, honorable members, is that these utterances have been made by persons who have led high political offices in our country. It is important to note that such positions have been preceded by these persons taking an oath to uphold, defend, and protect the Constitution and the rule of law in our country. The Office of the Chief Justice is also tasked with ensuring judicial accountability. This must be extended to consequent management for judicial officials who often delay justice with unreasonably long delays in handing down judgments. Chairperson, it remains a truism that corruption is an endemic in our public service. Our judicial system must therefore be capacitated and independent enough to prosecute the guilty without fear, favor, or prejudice. The IFP supports the BRRR. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. The FF Plus.
Dankie, huisvoorzitter. A capable, ethical, and developmental state is absolutely a necessity in South Africa. A capable and honest government, good leadership, governance, and accountability, a professional and ethical public administration is not what we're experiencing at the moment. The Office of the Chief Justice has got a key role to play in this regard. In the 2019-2020 financial year, the Department of the Chief Justice underspent in the administration program, the Superior Court Service Program, the Judicial Education and Support Program, and judges' salaries. Honorable House Chair, die onderspandering van die begroting het 'n direkte invloed, 'n negatiewe invloed op die nie-finansiële uitkomste van die kantoor van die hoofregter. Die onderspandering kan waarskynlik toegeskryf word aan 'n gebrek aan kundige aanstellings en kapasiteit wat die werksorde van hierdie belangrike kantoor negatief beïnvloed. Huisvoorzitter, hierdie verslag lei rooi ligte flikker vir behoorlike regspleging in Suid-Afrika. Baie dankie.
Baie dankie, agbare lid, ACGP.
Thank you, House Chair. The report of the OCJ raises a number of challenges faced by the office, the most important of which relate to the devastating impact of COVID-19 and budgetary cuts on the operation of the courts, access to justice, and this, of course, is a deep concern and should be a deep concern to all of us. The report, when read with the Judiciary's annual report, highlights several critical challenges arising from the lockdown, which impacted negatively on the independence of the judiciary. The Chief Justice stated that those challenges are the absence of a full-blown court modernization, rulemaking authority, and a judiciary-led independent court administration. The latter, the judiciary-led independent court administration, is long outstanding. That aspect needs to be finalized. The ACDP supports the committee project approach to these outstanding issues. We are extremely concerned by increasing case backlogs and the threat this poses to access to justice. The crisis has highlighted just how inefficient court processes are and the extreme need to modernize and digitize the courts. Chairperson, for the first time, virtual court hearings took place during the lockdown, with appeal courts faring relatively well, but not so with trial courts. Trial courts constitute a major part of the court system, and therefore the ACDP would like to see the Office of the Chief Justice capacitated more in this regard. As we've had the lockdown, many criminal and mainly civil trials were not able to take place and had to be postponed, and this, of course, leads to a denial of justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM? Not on the platform. ATM? Okay, good. NFP?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and honorable members of the National Assembly. Honorable Chair, the National Freedom Party would like to first and foremost welcome the report of the committee. We would like to commend the Office of the Chief Justice for receiving a clean audit. The Office of the Chief Justice is the custodian and safeguard of the laws of this country. Thus, it must lead by the example and it must uphold and seek to uphold the laws, regulations, and integrity on the highest level. With that said, we agreed with the committee's observation on the dissatisfaction on the performance of the lower courts. These courts are an important part of our communities because they provide access to justice for our people in local communities, particularly the poor. The National Freedom Party shares the concern of the committee on the cybersecurity breach of the Office of the Chief Justice in September 2020. Parliament was informed of the ICT inefficiencies at the Office of the Chief Justice by the Auditor General. This grave concern as it compromised the General even pointed out that ICT is an area of weakness at the Office of the Chief Justice. The National Freedom Party would like to understand what the Department of Justice is doing to expedite the process to address the weakness in the ICT system. We would like to express our deepest concern with the growing backlog cases. This poses a threat to our judicial system. We agree with the sentiment of the committee that this crisis has highlighted just how inefficient court processes. The backlog of court cases delays justice, and justice delayed is justice denied. The department informed Parliament that it has developed a case backlog plan with the relevant stakeholders. It is not clear to whether implementation of the plan is progressing well, but reports that court hours have declined further suggest otherwise. Unfortunately, future budget cuts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, ma'am.
Thank you. 2 minutes yakho iphelile. AIC? Uhambile. Oh. Cope?
Thanks, Honourable Speaker. Oh, Chairperson, COPE welcomes and supports the recommendation from the Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. PAC, Al-Jama.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, the office of the OCJ is our last hope for an independent judiciary after 25 years after our liberation. We do have eminent and respected judges, but their leadership is marred by judges who are captured. When it comes to IT systems, the best checks and balances are put in place. However, in this day and age, with a new abnormal, IT systems have been captured by spooks, and there is a lot of catch-up work to be done. Al-Jama supports the report.
Thank you. The ANC. On the virtual platform.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The African National Congress rise to support budgetary review and recommendation report on the Office of the Chief Justice. A separate budget vote for the Office of the Chief Justice is the ANC commitment to an independent judiciary, support to the rule of law, the doctrine of separation of powers, and the administration of justice. Our resolved that the Chief Justice, as the head of judicial authority, should exercise authority and responsibility over the development and implementation of norms and standards for the exercise of judiciary functions, such as the allocation of judges, cases, and courtrooms within all the court system and the administration of courts, including any allocation of resources, financial management, and policy matters relating to the administration of justice. In bringing justice closer to the people, House Chairperson, we welcome the completion of the Mpumalanga High Court. All 9 provinces have at least one High Court. Some of the OCJ notable achievements include obtaining a clean audit for yet another year. The department achieved 115 skills enhancement judicial education courses for judicial officers and aspirant judicial officers against a target of 80. While we welcome these achievements, members, we are concerned about security at our courts, the safety of judicial officers and all staff members. We are aware that judicial officers are often seized with traumatic cases, which sometimes negatively impact on them psychologically and even physically.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Supports the budget vote. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? None agreed to. The Secretary will read the third order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Service on Justice and Constitutional Development.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party. Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
Thank you very much. There's a request for declarations. The DA.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Department of Justice continues its backward slide in performance. Many targets remain unachieved. The fiscal performance continues to be a matter of major concern, and the department has been rudderless for some considerable time. There are many challenges faced by entities under the control of the Department of Justice, but particularly the NPA, underperforming disappointingly, cannot possibly up their game and deal effectively with crime, and especially serious economic crime, unless they are properly resourced and funded. No amount of assurances from the Minister and the President that they are serious about fighting corruption will change the fact that unless the NPA is placed in a truly independent position and given the resources to do the job, there will be we will not succeed in making South Africans feel safe. Legal Aid South Africa, once the crown jewel of the justice fraternity, is showing dangerous signs of backsliding. This must be avoided at all costs if South Africans are to have access to quality legal representation. On the proposed budget, this will not be possible, and it's already the ability to attract quality young lawyers to legal aid is causing both a decline in quality of representation due to overstretching of staff and a worrying decline in output. While the report is now tabled as an accurate reflection of the deliberations of the committee and is therefore supported, the budget itself is deeply problematic and cannot be supported by anybody seeking justice in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. The EFF. Thank you, brothers. Yes, EFF, we are allowed.
Justice is widely understood to be the first virtue of social institutions, and because of this, it must be seen to be impartial, applied without fear or favor, and must be blind to the wealth of persons. But the concept of justice by those in power seems to be quite different. We are a country where big-name politicians, white businessmen, and top white executives in state-owned companies loot freely without ever not having to worry about prosecutions. The law, it seems, is not made for the man and the woman on the streets. Whether it is those who murdered people in Marikana, or those responsible for the death of people at Life Estimeni, or those responsible for the looting at ESCOM, and now those responsible for looting COVID-19 funds in the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Gauteng. The law just seems blind to these criminal acts. Why is it that today, the National Prosecutions Authority has not even indicted Marcus Joost of the Steinhoff for looting over 20 billion of PIC funds? What is it about white people and their seemingly immunity from ever facing up to their sins? Is the NPA only meant to chase after black people and shield white criminals? Chairperson, we are vehemently opposed to the idea of justice that seems to dominate thinking among those in power. We want justice to apply equally to everyone who has broken the law. Unfortunately, the NPA is deeply immersed itself in factional politics of the ANC and prosecutes in a factional manner too. This they do in the full glare of the public, and the Department of Justice is actively promoting these injustices. And therefore, the EFF does reject this BRRR.
Thank you. IFP. The IFP on virtual platform. Abeko, Giadlula.
We hear Stan.
Okay, Babu Ngumalo Kubek.
Thanks, Chair. This year marks 25 years of the adoption of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. It is a remarkable achievement. The Constitution, as the supreme law of our country, not only provides us with the foundation guarantees of human rights, but also the tools to build a society based on democracy, equality, and non-racialism. Chair, as we reflect on the performance of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and the various associated entities, we have to ask, are we achieving this goal? Are we progressing on our constitutional commitment to provide access to justice? Honorable Chair and honorable members, the BRRR reflects the stark realities of our justice system. Legal Aid South Africa forms one of the core components of this constitution version of providing access to justice. but it is desperately underfunded and receives very little portions on support. This institution's budget was reduced by 23 million rand in 2021. Despite these harsh financial constraints, the institution performed and achieved its objectives. We also need to remind ourselves, honorable members, that the legal aid has received an unqualified audit opinion for 19 consecutive years. This institution desperately needs our support. The IFP therefore fully supports the committee's findings that it does not support the proposed budget reduction to Legal Aid South Africa. This is not the solution, but the budget reduction is to this key institution will have severe knock-on effects for the criminal justice system. Honorable Chair, now more than ever, we need to sharpen our oversight. We simply cannot accept that the AG's findings on the department are continuously ignored. We cannot accept that outstanding legal fees due to the client's departments increased to 2.4 billion rand in the year under review. We cannot accept that the department itself only achieved 49% of its planned indicators for 2019-2020. The people of deserve much better.
Thank you.
The IFP will continue to demand proper oversight of this department and entities. We will therefore accept the BAA report. Thank you.
Ntate Makhosini Chabangu. Au watle. Inuiti mantweo ke a kopa. Members, let's remember we only have 2 minutes. Iti mentate. FF plus.
Thank you, House Chair. Die Vryheidsfront Plus ondersteun wel die verslag en omdat dit 'n baie duidelike teregwysing is van 'n baie akkurate situasie en 'n kommerwekkende situasie wat in die departement heers. On 20 November 2020, Honorable Minister Ramora addressed the committee on the department's performance for the period under review, highlighting its concern about the continuous decline in the department's performance and attributed the decline as stemming from the fact that over the past couple of years, a culture of underperformance and little accountability without consequences that has estranged itself. Agbare Huisvoorsitter, die kabinet het verlede week 'n beplande grondhof goedgekeur met jurisdiksie oor gronddispuite. Insluitende gevalle waar grond moontlik in die toekoms sonder sonder vergoeding onteien gaan word, 'n hoë hof en 'n appelhof. Dit is nou in die hande van hierdie parlement om die grondhof amptelik deur die wetgewing tot stand te bring. The department's performance steadily declined as the 2019-20 financial year progressed. Agbare Huisvoorsitter, hierdie departement moet eers sy huis in orde kry voordat 'n grondhof ook nog 'n verleentheid vir die land gaan word. Dankie, voorsitter.
Thank you. ACGP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP shares the deep concerns expressed in this report about the poor state of the Department of Justice. We're in agreement with the recommendations of the committee that far more needs to be done to improve access to justice. Case backlogs are increasing, and this is often a measure of how well or badly a justice system in its entirety is working. The absence of a well-functioning electronic case-managed system is highly problematic, as well as the absence of an IT system to allow virtual trials to take place. The onset of COVID-19 in this regard has illustrated the necessity of an IT system that is efficient. COVID-19 seriously disrupted the functioning of our courts as officials became sick, some even passed away, judges passed away, and courts that were contaminated had to be closed down for a while and cleaned. The improved conviction rates for sexual offences, though welcome, is less impressive when measured against the number of reported sexual offences. More attention and resources need to be directed towards supporting survivors of sexual offences, and this the committee is also looking at. We welcome the fact that there more Tutuzela care centres are to be established, as well as the fact that the NPA is engaging with SAPs on the backlogs with forensic laboratories. This is a very serious aspect. As far as state capture and corruption is concerned, the amendment to the Zondo Commission regulations will greatly assist the independent directorate in prosecuting these matters. 81 priority corruption cases have been identified for swift finalization in this regard. We also clearly need to be vigilant that we don't have the same COVID-19 corruption when we come to the rollout of the vaccinations. The ACDP will support this report because it clearly highlights the deficiencies in the department. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM? ATM? Good. Honorable members, before I call the NFP, can we please not break the health protocols in the House? Let's check where we are seated and check our distances, please. If the cameras show you there, it's not good for the public. NFP? NFP? Okay. AIC? COPE?
Magorena, COPE e dumellana le ditšhišinyo tšeo di tlišitšwego ke reporte. Ntho e kgolo e re o kgopelang ke gore go be le implementation. Gomme re tshepa gore o tla ba ka mokgwa o. Upša ka mokgwa ke bolelang ka gona re kwana nayo. Thobele.
Re leboge Mokoni. PAC? Aljama?
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, there can't be financial constraints to deal with the recommendations of the Truth and Conciliation Commission to let the apartheid criminals have their day in court. We also can't deal with corrupt officials today that this president speaks about, while corruption is worse than apartheid, and a priority is not made to deal with bringing to justice those identified by the TRC. So this government, hulle moet nie net skrik maak met een of twee sake nie, instead of 100 cases that is needed at the time. A case in point is the state murder of Imam Abdullah Harun. Honorable House Chair, there must be a special ring-fence budget so that this important area, 25 or 26 years of our democracy, is not neglected. We will never succeed with rooting out corruption if apartheid criminals are not brought to book. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you. The ANC?
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. The African National Congress supports the Budgetary Review and Recommendations report on the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, other entities and institutions receive their budget allocations under the Justice and Constitutional Development Budget Vote. These include the National Prosecuting Authority, Legal Aid South Africa, the Special Investigating Unit, the South African Human Rights Commission, and the Public Protector South Africa. While we appreciate that 2020 was no ordinary year, given the COVID-19 pandemic and the national lockdown which affected the operations of the Justice Department and the entities receiving allocation in this vote, we note with concern the underspending which has been reported. The Minister of Finance last year announced that additional funding to the tune of 1.2 billion rands was received from the MTF. This was to improve the NPA's procedural capacity, to revive the aspirant prosecutor program, to operationalize the investigative directorate and fund the State Capture Commission. This is vital for a well-functioning justice system. We greatly concerned that the Department of Justice received a qualified audit outcome and there's been a sharp increase in irregular expenditure. Further, the department achieved less than 50% of its targets, in line with our constitutional duty to perform oversight over the department as the legislature. We have referred the matter of the department's non-performance and the systematic challenges to the Public Service Commission for investigation. The Public Service Commission derives its mandate from Section 195 and 196 of the Constitution to inter alia investigate, monitor, and evaluate the organization and administration of public service. The mandate also entails the evaluation of achievements or lack thereof of government programs. The PSC has an obligation to ensure effective and efficient performance within the public service. With regards to the matter at hand, the PSC must report to the Portfolio Committee by the period of in October.
Honorable Ngola, your time has expired, sorry. Thank you very much.
The ANC supports the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? If you can rise and register.
Chair, can you please note the objection of the EFF?
Thank you very much. Noted. No any other party, therefore the report is agreed to. Can I ask the Secretary to read the fourth order?
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on correctional services.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
There are requests for declarations. I will call the DA.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The department's goal is to ensure that sentenced offenders are incarcerated, that their behaviour is corrected, that they are rehabilitated, and that they are reintegrated. In support of progress towards this goal, the department provided a number of performance indicators which are considered in the report. But if we really want to measure the effectiveness of the system of corrections, we should measure how many offenders re-offend. Are we breaking the revolving door of prisoners returning to prisons after a depressingly short period? The answer is we don't know because the department itself doesn't know. The same is true for rehabilitation. Particularly few offenders attend TVET, FET, GET, and skills training. Production workshops stand empty. Agricultural land is not fully utilised. There are very few opportunities for offender labour to be used, and it is not enough to hide behind COVID. Yet the department says that it has achieved most of its performance indicators. According to the DCS, 99% of parolees and probationers do not violate their release conditions. According to it, 99% of sentenced inmates are subject to correctional programs. Anybody who's ever visited a correctional centre will know that these statistics simply cannot be right. Indeed, the Auditor General himself complained what he called the lack of accurate and complete records. While we support the report, COVID or no COVID, the DCS itself is not fulfilling its core mandate.
Thank you very much, EFF. Thank you, Ms. Yako.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We have consistently made the case for prison reforms in this House. We can no longer go on as if prison situation and its systems is normal. We have highly termed our prisons as correctional facilities, and there is not any behavioral solution, therapy, nor remedy that is encouraged in these correctional facilities. In 2020, according to the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, which itself is chronically underfunded, South African prisons had a population of more than 160,000 inmates, 16,000 of whom were serving life sentences. There were only 119 bed spaces available in these prisons, meaning that the correctional services spaces are overcrowded by over 40,000 prisoners. But 43,000 of these inmates are remand detainees who could not be released on bail if we had properly functioning lower courts. And they are yet to take the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure to task for not fulfilling their mandate of making sure that prison structures are kept in good form. It costs the department over 123,000 per annum to keep an individual inmate in jail. Most of these inmates live in overcrowded conditions, driving most of them to various forms of illnesses, most notably mental illnesses. While this is happening, the Department of Correctional Services is dishing out tenders to feed these inmates at inflated prices. We have submitted that inmates must be allowed to grow their own food, which would also impact on them, on their lifelong skills on agricultural production. They must also be allowed to make their own clothes, which will give them lifelong skills in sewing. There is no long-term vision that we can see for correctional services by this department, other than maintaining a clearly dysfunctional system, and therefore we reject this BRRR.
Thank you. FF Plus.
The IFP, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Ngumalo, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Come in, Honorable Ngumalo.
Thank you, Chair. The IFP has considered the BRRR with reference to the correctional services, and we wholeheartedly support the recommendations made therein. In specific, we concur with the committee that the recurrence and increase of irregular expenditure by the Department of Correctional Services is unacceptable. We need to focus on the fact that this department's irregular expenditure increased from 3.3 billion in 18-19 to 4.4 billion in 2019-2020. We need to demand accountability. This dire situation cannot simply just continue. The stakes are rather too high. At the end of the day, it is the most vulnerable in our society who are dependent on the effectiveness and the effective services and programs of this department who will feel the impact of this carnage. The global pandemic cannot be used as an excuse. The AG has year in year pointed out our weaknesses that requires urgent attention, but alas, this has been simply ignored. The IFP, therefore, fully supports the committee's recommendation that the department should provide a detailed report on the practical steps that it will take to address and prevent irregular expenditure and to regularly update the committee on the sequence on consequence management. We as Parliament, we need to demand much more, honourable members. We must demand accountability. The IFP is in agreement with the committee and also wishes to emphasize that the department needs to urgently focus on the outcomes. Further, in its reporting, it needs to provide details on tangible outcomes and performance targets. In the year under review, we were told by the department that it had achieved 31 of its 36 planned targets. We, however, require much more details to ensure accurate performance measure. In these uncertain times, we need to ensure that our limited resources are effectively managed. We simply cannot allow any wastage. The Department and of Correctional Services and the Judicial Inspectorate have key roles to fulfill in our democracy. We cannot allow their mandate to be compromised by ineffective management. The stakes are rather too high. The IFP accept the report.
Let Mulder, FF Plus.
Dankie, achtbare huisvoorzitter. Die Vryheidsfront Plus ondersteun die verslag en die aanbevelings soos aan die huis voorgehou vandag. Ons is egter van mening dat dit hoogs onwaarskynlik uitvoerbaar sal wees, die tyd sal leer. Die departement voldoen nie aan die mandaat wat vir hom gestel is nie. En Hierdie huis sal waarskynlik in die toekoms nog moet oorweeg om hierdie departement onder administrasie te plaas, omdat ons nie oortuig is dat hy die aanbevelings op sy eie sal kan deurvoer nie. Dankie, voorsitter.
Akbar Muldo? Oh, thank you. I wanted you to show it. Thank you. ACDP, Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP agrees with the contents of the report, which is a severe indictment of the department. The committee states that it is not impressed with the performance of the department and believes that there is, quote, no value for the money spent by the department because there are no tangible outcomes that the committee can realistically measure the department's performance. And these are hard words that need to be said, and it was agreed upon across political lines. The overall pace and performance of the department does not convince us in the committee that the goals of the National Development Plan Vision 2030 will be achieved by this department at all. To add to certain of the items highlighted, the department reported that 12,078 low-risk offenders were released following the COVID-19 special parole dispensation. That was at 12 October 2020. And now with the focus on curbing gender-based violence and indeed other crimes, the ACDP shares the concerns of the committee expressed in the report that the rate of recidivism amongst parolees, with 75 parolees being rearrested for committing new crimes, mostly housebreaking and theft, is a serious issue of concern. And clearly, the parole system must be reviewed in this regard. Lastly, the ACDP is concerned about the increase in irregular expenditure, an increase from 3.3 billion to 4.4 billion in the year under review. The department, we believe, is not serious about preventing irregular expenditure, as there is no evidence of consequence management for those responsible. This is a very frank report about the poor state of the departments, and the ACDP will support it. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM? ATM? Good. NFP?
Thank you, House Chair. The National Freedom Party welcomes the report of the Portfolio Committee. We are deeply and gravely concerned about the irregular expenditure incurred by the Department of Correctional Services. The irregular expenditure increased from 3.3 billion in 2018-2019 to 4.4 billion in 2019-2020. Even the committee felt that the department is not serious about preventing irregular expenditure because officials are not held responsible for this, and there is no evidence of consequence management for those responsible. On COVID-19, the Department of Correctional Services said that its COVID-19 recovery rate was over 90%. However, POPCRU refuted that statement, claiming that the department was battling high levels of infections. POPCRU has made some allegation against the department and Mr. Arthur Fraser, calling for his removal. It's alleged that untrained warders were appointed, excluding experienced ones, and that the department was failing to manage its COVID-19 cases. We saw and read this statement of the department responding to these allegations, but we cannot simply take its word. These allegations need to be looked into because they are very serious allegations. NFP supports the report. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. AIC? COPE? Thank you. PAC? Aldama?
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, I'm sure you will agree with me that spiritual care is a very important component for the rehabilitation of offenders. Chaplains play a very important role, especially those administering to their church members. There is only one Muslim chaplain for the whole of South Africa, based at Polsmoor in Cape Town. But it upsets me in fulfilling my oversight role and complaints to my National Parliamentary Constituency Office that since October there is no serving Muslim chaplain, and I'm going to ask the ACDP in the meantime please to help us out. Muslim prisoners for whom their faith is their hope have been thrown to a state worse than hell, especially during COVID with no chaplain. This discrimination must come to an end, Honourable House Speaker. The Muslim Prisoners Board and the MJC seem to be treated with contempt. This is disgusting. The national chaplain must help like he did in the past, and we hope that the governing party spokesman that's going to speak after me will address some of these issues. We cannot have this state of affairs in a democratic South Africa. Thank you, Honourable House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Hendricks. The ANC virtual platform, ANC. Okay, it's in the House. Thank you, Ma'am.
Thank you very much. The African National Congress rises in support of the BRRR of the Department of Correctional Services. The policies of the Department of Correctional Services are a reflection of the ANC commitment to the correcting offending behavior, to the safe and humane incarceration, and to the rehabilitation of offenders and their social integration, in line with the Bill of Rights. The triple challenge of poverty, unemployment, and equality is one of its structural and contributing factor to crime, which ultimately result in overcrowding in correctional centers. The ongoing challenge of overcrowding remains a major concern as it limits effect and meaningful rehabilitation. Some of the reasons for overcrowding are growing levels in incarceration, insufficient accommodation, and aging infrastructure, and the high population demand detainees. Another concerning issue is that the target of the creation of bed spaces through construction of new facilities was not achieved. The department indicated that it would work towards improving the audit outcome. As the committee, we will be monitoring the implementation of the road map to improve the audit outcome. We welcome the completion of Zanini correctional centers. We thank the hardworking and dedicated officials of the department who worked throughout the challenging year that was. We encourage the department to work harder to encourage that services are delivered in an effective and efficient manner. The ANC supports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Chair, can you please note the objection of the EFF?
Noted, thank you. With that, the report is duly agreed to. We now come to motions without notice. Any member of the ANC wishing to give a motion without notice?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chair.
Honorable members, wait, who's that?
It's Honorable Sokacha.
No.
Wait, Honorable Sokacha. You are cheating.
He's on the virtual platform.
No, your whip will talk to you. Wait a bit. There was a female voice again. Who's that?
Yes, Chairperson, Honorable Adams.
Wait for your whip to signal to you. We are now in the House. Honorable Khadebe, continue.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House welcomes the appointment of Dr. Okonjo Iweala as the new Director General of the World Trade Organization on Monday, 15 February 2021. Notes that effective from the 1st of March 2021, she will become the first ever woman and the first African in the organization's 25-year history to take the post of Director General. Acknowledges that Dr. Okonjo is a global finance expert, an economist and international development professional with over 30 years experience working in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, and North America. Believes that her election signals a global unity of purpose and demonstrates strong commitment to deepening gender equality, and congratulates her on her appointment at the World Trade Organization at such a critical moment in the global fight against COVID-19. I thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. The DA?
Thanks, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes with sadness the passing of Mr. Maria Swart due to COVID-19 related complications on 17 January. Further notes that Mr. Swart was a successful businessman before becoming a full-time politician, and that he served with excellence as the inaugural executive mayor of the George local municipality after being elected to this position in the 2000 local government elections. Recalls that Mr. Swart retired from politics after 10 years as a dedicated public servant, where he served as a member of parliament for the DA in the National Assembly during the 4th and the 3rd parliaments. Recognizes that Mr. Swart made dynamic contribution to the development of the Southern Cape, acknowledges that Mr. Swart is survived by his wife, Ms. Sanet Swart, 3 children and 3 grandchildren. Conveys its heartfelt condolences to the
Malaji? Tata Malaji? Tswalla video, wakata baba. Wakata. Bosa fetcha usana li 24 seconds. So nekere tswalla video to get a better bandwidth.
Should I start? Because from my side, I had finished, House Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. The EFF?
Thank you, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that this House strongly condemn the scourge that corruption has grown to become in our country with the harshest contempt. To note that corruption has proven time and time again that its ramifications are poorer infrastructure, an unstable economy, a deterrent to accessing quality healthcare, justice, free and quality education, housing and sanitation, unemployment, intentional development of the township, rural and informal communities, that it is an obstruction to justice for victims of gender-based violence, rape and femicide, and is a vicious cycle that this House must actively denounce and disassociate from. To acknowledge that corruption is the very fiber of a malfunctioning government. Corruption is one of the primary reasons why services budgeted for and planned do not trickle down to becoming a reality for our people in destitute communities that are in dire need of state intervention and resources that our people contribute to for the betterment of our livelihoods. That this House must collaboratively assert that in more cases than none, corruption equates to murder and perpetuation of intolerable absolute poverty that more than 50% of our population lives in. Commit to taking necessary steps within the bounds of the Constitution to swiftly act against corruption, including bypassing a motion of no confidence in cabinet members who are found to be involved in corruption or if there is prima facie evidence. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion?
Please note the objection of the ANC. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The objection is noted. Therefore, the motion without notice becomes a notice of a motion. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, Ms. Adams, continue.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes that South Africa jazz trombonist and Grammy Award-winning composer Jonas Wangwa, whose music powered the anti-apartheid struggle, passed on Saturday, the 23rd January 2021 at the age of 83. Acknowledges that Jonas Gwangwa became a leading light on the South Africa jazz scene at a young age and went on to lead the African National Congress flagship musical assembly, remembers that he left the country in 1961 on tour with King Kong and remained in exile for 30 years. Further remembers that in 1980, at the request of the ANC leaders, he assembled and directed the Amandla Cultural Assembly, which taught the world helping the build support for the struggle against apartheid. Recalls that the delighted audience in Sophia Town until it became illegal for black people on congregate and South Africa musicians were jailed merely for practicing their craft. Further recalls that he was awarded the Order of Ingama, South Africa highest national award presented for achievement in arts and culture 2010, conveys its condolences to the family and friends in the music industry. I thank you, Chairperson.
Please check your time. For this item, we have 1 minute, 30 seconds each party. Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion? No objection. Agreed to. IFP? The IFP? IFP? FF plus? Expected from the virtual platform? Ek gaan voort. ANC? Sokacha?
Thank you very much, House Chair. On behalf of the African National Congress, I would like to move without notice that the House acknowledge that the scientists from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, working with other laboratories, were at the forefront of genomic surveillance work that has led to the identification of a new COVID-19 variant. Secondly, understands that the KwaZulu-Natal Research, Innovation and Sequencing Platform identified the virus variant after sequencing hundreds of samples of virus and noticing that this particular variant had been dominating the findings from the samples collected in the past 2 months. Thirdly, further understands that the evidence collated strongly suggested that the current second wave being experienced in South Africa is being driven by the variant. Fourthly, realize that according to the scientists, the variant may be more transmissible and could weaken protection from vaccines and prior infections. Fifthly, further realize that this variant is one of the several seemingly more contagious variants of the new coronavirus currently in circulation. And lastly, that the House commends the doctors, the scientists and researchers who have been involved in the management of the vaccine trials in the country with their hard work. I so moved. Thank you.
Honorable members on the virtual platform, you are the ones who are exceeding your time. Please help us, because you don't move. You don't come to moving the motion as you are expected to. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections agreed to. ACDP?
Madam Chair, on a point of order, if I may crave your indulgence momentarily.
Yes, Honorable Hlengwa.
On behalf of the IFP, I'd like to apologize for earlier on. Honorable Nxumalo was unfortunately kicked out when he was supposed to read the motion, and we're craving your indulgence if you may allow him an opportunity later on or now to read the motion. We apologize for the technical glitch.
Apology accepted. You will be called. ACDP?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. On behalf of the African Christian Democratic Party, I move without notice that this House congratulates Apiwe Masondo from Kloof High School on becoming the school's dux and top learner in achieving 7 distinctions. Notes that the year 2020 was a difficult and trying year for most grade 12 learners, yet despite the adverse circumstances, young Apiwe still managed to attain distinctions in English, isiZulu, mathematics, life orientation, life science, and physical science. Further wishes Apiwe Masondo well in his future studies at UCT in the field of neurology, and further congratulates all grade 12 learners who successfully completed their National Senior Certificate 2020 examinations. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there objections to the motion? No objections, agreed to. IFP, it's your opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I move that the House notes that His Majesty the King Goodwill Zwelithini Kabheka Zulu, the longest reigning monarch of the Zulu nation, will this year celebrate 50th anniversary of his coronation. Acknowledges that, having led his people through the dark era of apartheid, the King remains a champion of the ongoing struggle for full liberation.
Leonetta KwaZulu. Ntate Sengwa, can you take over if he's not able to continue?
Preserving the traditions of the Zulu nation and to promoting the institution of traditional leadership in the quest for good governance. Notes that under his leadership, every family in the Zulu kingdom has the security of being able to access enough land on which
ICT, I see you there. Are you assisting?
Am I still audible, Chair?
And you were cut off, but continue. You still have.
I think the problem is right.
You still have a minute.
Thank you.
You still have a full minute to conclude. Continue.
Notes that under his leadership, every family in the Zulu kingdom has the security of being able to access enough land to which to live and raise their family. Wishes His Majesty a speedy return to excellent health in recognition of a heavy burden he carries to lead in a time of a global pandemic. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to this motion? No objections, agreed to. UDM? ATM? The DA?
Thank you. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that the Belleville High School achieved 100% National Senior Certificate pass rate for the 8th consecutive year in the 2020 academic year. Further notes that all the matric learners achieved marks that would allow them to be admitted to tertiary education programs, with a nearly 95% passing the NSC with baccalaureate admittance. Acknowledges that the learners and educators managed to produce these excellent academic results despite the number of challenges they faced due to the COVID-19 pandemic, including extended disruptions to the 2020 academic year. Congratulates the educators in the class of 2020 on this outstanding achievement and wishes the headmaster, Mr. G.J.J. Duplessis, and his team continued success. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? None, agreed to. The EFF?
Thank you, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House notes the worrying and deteriorating state of higher education in South Africa today. Notes that as we have just celebrated with the matric class of 2020 and are about to commence the academic year in institutions of higher learning, thousands of qualifying hopefuls sit at home with no guarantee of access to education. Notes this is despite education being a basic human right and constant assurance we are a generation that would benefit from free education. Further notes that core issues right now affecting returning students are student debt and registration fees.
Acknowledge that because of maladministration, NSFAS has not paid institutions of higher learning, and as a result, in particularly black institutions, NSFAS-funded students cannot register due to debt owed. Further notes that although South Africa does not have enough capacity to absorb all potential students, UNISA has been instructed to deregister 20,000 students who must now sit at home babengomahlalela. Calls on all stakeholders to engage and resolve on all issues facing students to ensure that no student is left behind. Encourages all student movements to continue to engage in the pickets and not retreat until there is a solution. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion?
House Chair, please note the objection of the ANC.
The objection noted. The motion will now be converted to a notice of a motion. The ANC?
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The ANC moves without notice that the House notes with great sadness the passing on of the world-celebrated opera and jazz icon Dr. Sibongile Khumalo on Thursday, the 28th of January 2021 at the age of 63 after a long illness. Two acknowledges that she performed for distinguished audiences at events, one of which was at the 75th birthday of the late President Nelson Mandela. Three, remembers that she led the singing of the South African national anthem at the historical 1995 World Cup rugby final. Fourth, further remembers that she also performed internationally, including at famous London Royal Albert Hall. Fifth, understand that her hits include My Shome, Tula Mama, become household songs, and her songs took her to the top of the radio charts. Sixth, recalls that Dr. Khumalo received the Presidential Order of Ikamanga in silver in the 2008 for her contribution for arts and culture. And lastly, extend its condolences to the family, friends, and associates of Dr. Sibongile Khumalo. I so move, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to this motion? None agreed to. Good. I saw you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Proceed, Honorable August.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of Good that the House notes the ongoing gang-related violence in Cape Town, that it was reported that 7 murders took place on the Cape Flats last weekend, and that the South African Police Service is under siege and cannot bear responsibility for the provision of safe living environments for our people on its own. Therefore, calls on the National Department of Police and Social Development to urgently convene a dialogue on the real and sustainable measures to combat the scourge of violence, and further called on these departments to engage their regional and local counterparts and appropriate community-based organizations with a view of fundamentally rethinking current strategies and tactics to stop the senseless killings which place too much emphasis on policing and too little on community development. So move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections agreed to. The NFP?
Thank you, House Chairperson. The National Freedom Party, I move on behalf of the National Freedom Party that this House notes that despite numerous requests to the National Department of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation and appeal to the President of the country to put a moratorium on eviction, various residents in different parts of the country continue to be evicted. Further note that the occupants of the Woodstock Hospital are in the process of being evicted by the city of Cape Town. Also notes that the people of Rondevlei in Lavendale have also been harassed, intimidated, and threatened and had their shacks demolished by the red hands of the city of Cape Town. Further notes that South Africa has a housing crisis and municipalities countrywide are not in a position to provide fully serviced sites, which will enable residents to build their own home. Wherefore, we call on this Honourable House to appeal to authorities to consider the plight of the homeless in South Africa, which is one of the most unequal societies in the world. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections agreed to. The ANC?
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House welcomes the appointment of Professor Puleng Lenkabula as the new Vice Chancellor of the University of South Africa effective from the 1st of January 2021. Further notes that she will officially take over in April 2021 following the extension of the term of office of the incumbent, Professor Mandla Makhanya, for a period of 4 months. Understands that Professor Lenkabula becomes the country's 5th female Vice Chancellor and UNISA's first woman Vice Chancellor since UNISA's establishment 148 years ago. Commends the UNISA Council, Senate, and Institutional Forum on showing a commitment to transformation and congratulates Professor Puleng Lenkabula on her historic appointment and wishing her well in her new appointment. So I move.
Thank you. Any objections to the motion? None agreed to. AIC. Will. Thank you. ANC.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with deep sadness the passing of the legendary boxing trainer and promoter Mzimazi Mguni at the age of 72 on Saturday, 13th February 2021 after a long illness. Remembers that he used classrooms in Tanzania to prepare his boxers to fight against opponents who trained in state-of-the-art gymnasiums all over the world. Recalls that his passion and loyalty were evident throughout the boxing career, which started fittingly in the township of Mdantsane. Recognizes that he has been one of the most influential figures in South African boxing and conveys its condolences to his family, friends, and the boxing fraternity. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? None agreed to. The DA?
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that the Stellenbosch local municipality has recently announced that it is determined to become the first municipality in the country to reduce and ultimately eliminate load shedding by purchasing and generating its own supply of electricity. Further notes that Stellenbosch plans to mitigate the economic impact of load shedding by reducing its reliance on Eskom and instead relying on deriving energy from alternative, greener energy sources, including the potential use of solar panels, purchasing electricity directly from existing independent power producers, and allowing members of the public to generate their own electricity and sell the surplus to the municipality. Recognizes that the amendment of Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act of 2006, promulgated in October 2020, enables municipalities in good financial standing to research options to generate its own electricity and to procure electricity directly from IPPs. Acknowledges that Stellenbosch has already signed memoranda of agreement with the University of Stellenbosch and the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research to investigate the best options for the municipality to procure and generate its own electricity and become energy resilient. Congratulates the council and the management of the municipality and wish them well on their journey to become energy independent with long-term energy sustainability.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion? None agreed to. PAC? Al-Jama?
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Al-Jama moves without notice that the House notes with deep sadness the recent passing of a great hero in the Muslim community on the Cape Flats, Haji Shafiq Rylands, from Athlone due to a sudden illness. That the House notes that Mr. Shafiq Rylands was a pioneer in the export market for fruit. Recognizes his role in assisting many farmers to comply with international standards and help South Africa become a leading exporter of fruit. That he largely contributed to South Africa on the international map as a chief buyer for a listed supermarket over a period of 40 years. That the House extends condolences to the Rylands family.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? None. The motion is therefore agreed to. Bakhala, awa, hayi phambi kwamehlo ami ngeniqalile. Akuchidwe lapha. Vulani, ngiyangizwa. ANC?
Thank you, Chair. The ANC moves without notice that the House notes that International Women's Day is annually held on 8th March to celebrate women's achievements throughout history and across nations. Further notes that the day is also known as the United Nations UN Day for Women's Rights and International Peace. Acknowledge that the majority of the world's 1.3 billion absolute poor are women, and on average, women receive between 30 and 40% less pay than men earn for the same work. Further, acknowledge that women also continue to be victims of violence, with rape and domestic violence listed as significant causes of disability and death among women worldwide. Understand that the theme for this year is Choose to Challenge. Therefore, calls on all activists to raise their hands high to show that they choose to challenge and call out gender bias and inequality and celebrate women's achievement. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there no objections to the motion? None agreed to. The last item on the order paper is notices of motion. Remember, this one, you cannot exceed a minute. Any member of the ANC wishing to give a notice of a motion?
Ndi koribuwa mdzulachidulo nendo takuchedza pando imera lihoro libusi lihoro la vadzimu na vathu line la PANC ndichita kuchedza uri kadzulo lidaho mdzulachidulo heyi ndu aiye iyo debate efforts to eradicate corruption in the public and the private sector through increased awareness and access to information. Ndiyaribuwa mdzulachidulo.
Valeboha. The DA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the role and future sustainability of the South African Post Office in an era of declining mail volumes and how it can transform to meet the demands and opportunities of the fourth industrial revolution and the digital age. I so move.
Thank you very much. The EFF.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move to request that this House in the next sitting debates the crisis of higher education in relating to NSFAS maladministration and it not being able to fund students. Thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Rena bjalo ka lekgotla la badimo le batho re a šišinya gape gore ntlo e latelang o batulo e latelang re kgopela gore ntlo e debate ka investment both private and public crucial because it's crucial for South Africa to accelerate its economic growth. Ke a leboga modulasetulo.
Ra leboga. IFP.
Thank you, Chair. The IFP hereby moves without notice that this House debates the growing crisis of unemployment, especially among the youth, and the need for government to prioritize job opportunities for South Africans in the low or no skill sector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The FF Plus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hereby give notice that on the next sitting day of the House, I shall move on behalf of the Freedom Front Plus that the House debates the current model of youth development in South Africa, especially taking into account the National Youth Development Agency, its current mandate, the actual input into youth development that the NYDA has completed from its inception, whilst noting that youth unemployment is at an all-time high and even higher than in countries currently tarnished by civil war, further taking into account that the NYDA has had questionable projects which has not stimulated youth development nor youth employment. I so move.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you.
Ma'am Khanjo, Honorable Khanjo, I'll move again. We'll come back to you. There's one in the house. Your mic. Yeah, it's fluctuating.
Chair, there's also.
Wait a bit.
I move on behalf
Honorable Khanjo. Honorable Khanjo. Honorable
in its
Khanjo.
next sitting, this House debates environment. Yes.
Honorable Ganjo, we'll call you back. Please try to find a place. We can't hear you. We'll come back to her. ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the African Christian Democratic Party that at the next sitting of the House debates the existence and negative impact of race classification in the country, whether by indirect means or otherwise. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM.
Ndiphakama kule ndawo ndigunyaziswa ngumbutho wam United Democratic Movement ukuba xa iphinda ihlala lendlu yomthetho ishukuxe intswela-ngqesho nendlala kumaphondo asemaphandleni nangakumbi idibanise nolutsha eMzantsi Afrika. Siyabulela.
Siyabulela. Mam Ganjo, are you ready now? Okay, we will give it to one in the house on for you for that slot. Honorable.
House Chair, I move on behalf of the ANC that this House in its next sitting debates the environmental sustainability as an important component of economic development and transformation. I so move.
Thank you. ATM. DA. The DA.
Njengelunga le-Democratic Alliance ngiphakamisa ukuthi ngosuku ngenhlangano elandelayo ukuthi sidikide udaba olubalulekile kakhulu lokhetho le-SASCOP. Ngiyabonga.
Sibonge mhlonishwa. EFF.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move on behalf of the EFF that this House in the next sitting debates the crisis and scourge of corruption and efforts to implement in order to eradicate the scourge of corruption and hold accountable involved individuals and members of the cabinet in perpetuating and participating in corruption. I so move.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Mama, so continue. You will come after her, Velma. Honorable Velma, you will come after the Honorable Mato. Somebody speak.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On behalf of the ANC, I move that on the behalf of the ANC in the next sitting, the House debate agricultural agro-processing, job creation and land reform, central to achieving an integrated and inclusive rural economy. I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good. NFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move that its next sitting, this House deliberates on the abuse, harassment, intimidation, rape, and murder of Palestinian people who have been dispossessed from their land and property by Israel, and resolves to downgrade the South African Embassy in Israel to a liaison office until such time Israel stops the hostilities against the Palestinian people, respects the right of Palestinian people to exist, and complies with all international agreements entered into. I so move.
Thank you. The ANC, Honorable Velma. Yes, Honorable Velma. Yes, yes.
Yes. Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates public trust and credibility of the criminal justice system and enhances the state's ability to provide for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
I so move.
Thank you. The AIC.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
I hereby move on behalf of African Independent Congress that this House in its meeting debate how can we as politicians and members of Parliament in particular convince the public to use their constitutional right to vote for the purpose of taking the country forward. I so move.
Thank you. ANC.
House Chair, I move on behalf of ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates accelerating economic growth through a skills revolution. Thank you.
Thank you. DA?
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the deepening levels of hunger and poverty in South Africa, especially since the beginning of the national lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19 and the resultant spread of social ills among the poor and vulnerable. I so move.
Thank you. PAC? Al-Jama. Honorable Hendricks?
Al-Jama, we are okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in the next sitting, the House debates achieving transformation and development of the agricultural sector and the pertinent role played by Land Bank as one of South Africa's most important development finance institutions. Thank you. I so move.
Thank you very much. That concludes notices of motion and business for the day. The House is adjourned. Thank you, honorable members.